Hello everyone. This video presents a notable event that happened on each day from the past week in history. On January 19th, 1995, a Bristow Helicopters Eurocopter AS-332L Super Puma suffered a terrifying lightning strike while transporting 16 oil workers and a crew of 2 from Aberdeen, Scotland to an offshore oil rig. Much like the more famous Miracle on the Hudson in 2009, the skilled pilot was able to make a water landing and saved all on board. Unlike the Hudson River, the North Sea is farther from shore and considerably rougher, with far fewer folks around to conduct an immediate rescue. The icy cold water in January could kill survivors within minutes of immersion, but the Hilo was equipped with an inflatable life raft, and all on board were able to get into the raft. The rescue ship Grampian Freedom deserves much credit for finding the raft in the high seas and vague location given. Have you ever flown in a helicopter? Please let us know in the comments for this video. On January 20th, 1937, Franklin D. Roosevelt became the first U.S. president to be sworn in on January 20th, a date changed from the previous inauguration day of March 4th by the 20th Amendment of 1933. Some other interesting presidential firsts on January 20th include Dwight D. Eisenhower, the first five-star general sworn in as president in 1953 and the first born in Texas, John F. Kennedy, the youngest elected president, inaugurated in 1961, Ronald Reagan, inaugurated in 1981 as the oldest president up to that time, Barack Obama became the first African-American president in 2009, as well as the first president born in Hawaii. Joe Biden eclipsed Ronald Reagan as the oldest U.S. president in 2021 and the first to have a female vice president. What are some presidential firsts you would like to see? Who is your favorite president? On January 21, 2009, Israel pulled its military forces out of the Gaza Strip after a 3-week war with Palestinian Islamic extremist group Hamas. While fighting in and around Gaza continued in the following weeks, the scale of the fighting was a mere shadow of the Israeli-Hamas fighting that began in October of 2023. In what was called the Gaza War of 2008 to 2009, 13 Israelis and between 1,100 and 1,400 Palestinians were killed. Lasting from December 27, 2008 until January 18, 2009, the war was just one of many Arab-Israeli wars and other armed and violent conflicts that have occurred since the founding of Israel in 1948. While the Israelis characterize Hamas as a terrorist organization, the Palestinian supporters of the organization consider Hamas a nationalistic and patriotic group. On January 22, 2009, only a couple days after being sworn in, President Barack Obama issued an executive order ordering the closure of the detention facility at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, where suspected terrorists were being held. Congress overrode the president and Gitmo stayed open. Obama also suffered the failure to get universal national health care passed and had to settle for a watered-down version known as Obamacare. Almost all presidents fail at certain projects, including President Nixon, who promised peace with honor in Vietnam, but the North Vietnamese were not about to be honorable. President George H.W. Bush, who said, "Read my lips, no new taxes," and yet we got new taxes. President Clinton, who championed universal health care but failed to see it realized, and President George W. Bush, who promised to catch Osama bin Laden dead or alive, but did not do so. What do you think is the biggest presidential failure? On January 23, 2002, Wall Street Journal reporter Daniel Pearl was kidnapped in downtown Karachi, Pakistan by Islamist militants and subsequently murdered. Some other high-profile kidnappings include Julius Caesar, who in 75 BC at the age of about 25 was captured by pirates and held for ransom, returning after his release to kill his kidnappers. Holocaust mastermind Adolf Eichmann was hiding in Argentina in 1960 when the Israeli Mossad kidnapped him and took him to Israel to be convicted and hanged, justifiably so to many who would not characterize him as a victim. 19-year-old Frank Sinatra Jr. was kidnapped in 1963, but after collecting the ransom, the kidnappers were caught and sent to prison, although the ringleader was later found to be insane. Finally, heiress Patty Hearst was kidnapped in 1974 at the age of 19 by the Symbionese Liberation Army and appeared to have been brainwashed into joining them. On January 24, 1989, serial killer Ted Bundy was executed by electric chair. Nearly 30 years later, on January 24, 2018, Larry Nassar was sentenced to 175 years in prison for abusing American female gymnasts over the course of his career as the gymnastic team's doctor. For most Americans, any criminal that uses children as victims is generally held in the most contempt of all criminals. Nassar was assaulted by other prisoners almost immediately upon being sent to prison, and in 2023 he was viciously stabbed by another convict. Jeffrey Dahmer was a convicted serial killer that also preyed on men and boys as young as 14 years old. Dahmer was beaten to death in prison in 1994. The rumor that prison inmates hate those who physically prey upon children and will attack such abusers appears to be true. What criminals do you despise the most? On January 25, 1980, India honored the Albanian nun known as Mother Teresa with their highest civilian honor, the Bharat Ratna. Born in what is now North Macedonia, Teresa would go on to found the Missionaries of Charity and minister to the poor and dying people of India, eventually becoming a Catholic saint in 2016, almost 2 decades after her death. Nevertheless, critics claim that although she received millions of dollars worth of contributions, her facilities did not provide medical care or comfort to the dying people located there, and those people suffered horribly with the consent of Mother Teresa. Christopher Hitchens said Teresa was not a friend of the poor, she was a friend of poverty. She said that suffering was a gift from God. Were you aware of the criticisms of Mother Teresa? What do you think about such criticisms? Please let us know in the comments. As a question for my students and subscribers, which event from this past week in history would you most like to learn more about? Please let me know in the comment section below this video. If you liked this video and would like to receive notification of new videos, please feel welcome to subscribe to History and Headlines and become one of our patrons. Your viewership is much appreciated. For image, audio, and other credits and attributions for components of the individual videos in this compilation, please see the descriptions of their respective videos, which are linked to in this video's description.